Call to order, Budget and Personnel Committee meeting, July 14th, 2021, 6 p.m. Public comment, I don't believe we have any, correct?
We have no public here, Mr. Chairman.
No public comment. We'll move on to agenda adoption.
So move.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Review and consideration of employee raises. I will turn this over to Mr. Talbot. I read through your handouts. They were very informative.
Give me 1 second, sir. Well, get it up on the, I had it minimized, but it disappeared on me. So give me 1 second. Okay. At the beginning here, we're just spelling out how we do our raises. All the supervisors, or all the department heads here, use a software tool from Insperity called Performance Management Software from Insperity. I'm sorry. All the managers use this. It has 11. We've identified 11 distinct competencies on this software. I'll list them here for you. The advantage of using the software is that everybody gets measured by the same yardstick. We all get the same standards applied so that the evaluations can be as even and as comprehensive as possible. As you would expect, any sampling of people, when you evaluate them, it should approach a bell curve. You see a sample of bell curve there, and right below that you'll see the actual performance bar chart for this year. We had a total of 39 employees evaluated. I'm sorry, 37. The average score was 3.36. That computes to an average raise of 2.72%. We budget for an average of 2.5%. For FY22, and we generally budget for the same thing every year. The highest raise is 5%, the lowest raise is 1.5%. Now, I know that doesn't look like it looks like we're over budget on money for this. We are actually not. We are actually under budget for our raises, and there are some reasons for that. One of which is that the 2.5% applied to, well, it depends. The average raise for some of those who aren't making quite as much money, when you make the computation, comes out below the money that we have budgeted. So in any event, we are under. If you look at last year's, the average score was 3.35%, and the average raise was 2.74%. I'm sorry, the average score was 3.35 and the average raise was 2.74%. If you look, that's very close to what it came out this year. When you take a large group of people and do this, it tends to come out very similar. Again, last year the highest raise was 5 and the lowest raise is 1.5, identical to this year. As you can see from the chart, we peak in the middle. The majority of our employees rate as average. We have just 1 or 2 that rate below that, just a handful, and we have a handful also that rated very well. If you look at the chart, 2021 by department, average, it gives you the averages, scores, and raises for each department over the last 2 years. And if you're wondering what the years are there, we evaluate in 1 year and apply the raise from the resulting from that evaluation in the next fiscal year, which is why you're seeing 3 different fiscal years on that chart. The scores for FY20, the raise for FY21, I should say, are the result of the scores for the fiscal year 2020. As such, the raises for FY22 are the result of the scores obtained for each employee over the year they worked in FY21. So we evaluate you for the past year, and we give you a raise based on that for the next year. You can see that we're under budget, and once all the corrections are made, we're under budget by about $29,000 under what we budgeted for raises this year. We were under a similar amount. Actually, we're under a little more than that last year. We were under about 34 last year. And that is a good place to be. It does give us a little cushion. It does allow us to make some adjustments during the year if we see employees that need rewarding. It allows us to make some adjustments. Also, if you look back up on the chart there, if you look under the police department, that number for the police department does include 3 promotions which are scheduled for this year, which may or may not happen. You'll see in the paragraph below that, we give you the number for those promotions, 9846, which reducing that from the 39 total gives you the 29,467, which is the net amount we say we're under for raises this year. Going down to part-time employees, and I know we did not recommend I did not recommend a part-time raise last year. Just to explain that a little bit, it's been done a couple different ways here. In the past, we've had departments which did the same evaluation on their part-time employees that they did on their full-time employees, and a merit raise was applied in that department. We've also, and I'm looking back historically here at the information I have, we've also had departments which simply gave a COLA to their part-time employees. I'm recommending this year a COLA for our part-time employees, and we have about 26 right now. I believe there's 17 in EMS. You got 4? Police department has 4, and we have trolley and mosquito control, which also are part-time employees technically. We gave all part-time employees a 2.5% increase that was effective in February, and we made it retroactive to July 1 of last year. So last fiscal year, part-time employees got a pretty good raise for part-timers, especially in a pandemic, 2.5%. So this year I'm recommending 1.5%, which will allow our part-time employees over the last 2 fiscal years to average 2% a year, which I think is pretty good for part-time. With that, I'll entertain any questions on the numbers. If we do get into specific areas, we can't talk about specific areas in open session if we do get into individuals. If that's the case, we can either defer it or we can go into executive session once this is over. And I will take the cast of the screen off the board and show you some of the nuts and bolts of this in a large spreadsheet. But that does contain individual employees' names, so we would have to go into executive session before we did that. But otherwise, I'll entertain any questions about this. And the committee is asked to ultimately make a recommendation on recommending the raises to the full council or not. And your options are to vote to make the recommendation, not make the recommendation, send me back to the drawing board, whatever you would like.
What's the pleasure of the committee? I mean, looks pretty clear cut to myself.
Yeah, I think we need to go ahead and take it to council.
Take it to council.
If I could make one other comment. We are still looking into a few things with individuals. The object here is to present the numbers to you as far as budget, and I would reserve the right to, we have not, as a rule, we don't discuss or review our employee evaluations with the actual employees until the council votes yes or no on the raises. At that time, we go in and we do the actual review with our employees. All the department heads have already done the reviews, but we have not shared them with the individual employees. This is the way the numbers work out. But I would ask to reserve the right to tweak, as we should say, individual employees' evaluations as I see fit, as long as we stay under this number and within the scope of your recommendation.
I mean, that makes sense, because you're not changing the overall number.
No, sir.
That makes sense on mine, so.
And with the scope of the things we're still looking at, I can't imagine that the averages would change more than 1/100 of a point or so.
Do you all find it necessary to see the breakouts? We can go into closed session at the end.
I do.
I don't need to.
I don't need to. No, I don't either. All right, I was just checking with you, Joe. All right, yeah, so,
Then I'll make a motion that we pass this along to the full council.
Second.
Get it passed.
all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. There you go.
We can
On
put that on the
council.
agenda, if the council sees fit, we can put it on the agenda for the August 2nd meeting. And I should say also that the fiscal year has started, all these would be retroactive to the first pay period in July.
Yeah.
Which
All right, update on ARPA funding.
Yes, sir. Again, I have something for you. VML, as you know, does some very good work on this sort of thing, and I had signed up for this class, but at the last minute had something come up and was unable to attend in the office. But there's some good information in VML's presentations here. These are the 4 basic categories that ARPA projects have to fit under. They are very broad. All of the categories basically say that you have to respond. It has to be something related to the pandemic, something related to the recovery from the pandemic, outside of the one which identifies simply infrastructure, and the infrastructure is water, sewer, and broadband specifically. They went through in this course individual projects or examples of projects. The project would have to be a water and sewer project, and that's the reason we signed up for this course. The water and sewer project would have to be eligible under the Environmental Protection Agency's Clean Water State Revolving Fund, which we have the guidance on that. Harvey's looking at it. And specifically, here's some of the specific projects or categories. Construct publicly owned treatment works. Implement state non-point source pollution management program. That's stormwater. A conservation and management plan, again, stormwater. Construct, prepare, replace decentralized wastewater treatment systems that treat municipal wastewater and domestic sewage. Manage, reduce, treat, and recapture stormwater. Reduce the demand on publicly owned treatment works capacity through water conservation and efficiency. Develop implementation of watershed projects. Reduce energy consumption for publicly owned treatment works. Recycle wastewater, stormwater, subsurface drainage water. Increase the security of publicly owned treatment works. And obtain financing for CWSRF eligible projects and assist each treatment works in achieving compliance with CWA. It goes on, you know, these are the kind of things, these categories are broad, fairly broad as well. We can do just about anything we need to do in the water, wastewater, stormwater area. It specifically says that we can apply design fees, professional design fees, engineers, architects if we need to. And it specifically allows you to apply some administrative costs. And Kelly's staying up to date on that part of it. One thing I thought was interesting, and I've been reading a great deal about this as I did CARES Act money, there is a feeling, and I say feeling because I have not ferreted out this yet, but I've seen some things that are applications from the state, from state agencies to the state to use their ARPA money for. And these run the gamut from helicopters and body cameras for state police to paving I-64. And they have justifications for making these using COVID money. One of the things I saw was interesting is if this is a project, if you have a project that was planned for your FY20, FY21 budget, and you canceled that project due to COVID, it could be eligible for ARPA money because you canceled the project. Now, as you know, we had a number of projects when I came here that were on the boards for capital improvement that we put off specifically because we did not know if we'd have the funds to do it for COVID. So even with the fact that our tax monies were not down considerably, I'm looking into the possibility of funding some of those capital projects that we put off with ARPA money. That is a distinct possibility. I just have to get some better guidance on it, but we'll ferret that out. But we had at least 8 or 10 projects. Robbie had a few. You had the Stanley Recorder, and how many else did we put off? New rifles. I mean,
6 or 7, I mean.
a number of projects in the police department that we put off because of COVID. I know paving the Memorial Park parking lot and drive, that was on the list that we put off. That was $50,000, if I'm not mistaken.
And we put the boat ramps off as well.
I'll have to look. There may have been, the boat ramp at the park was already done.
I mean, the repair to make it usable or whatever.
I have to look. But I have a spreadsheet where we just went in and redlined things that we took out. So, but there was a good number of projects that we put off because of that, and they may be eligible. So I'll try to get a handle on that tomorrow, as far as for tomorrow's meeting, as far as if that's going to be eligible or not. But I have read a couple agencies who are using that justification for doing some projects that have nothing to do with water, wastewater, and broadband.
Well, I was gonna ask you if you and Harvey had identified
Oh,
some
yes.
projects.
Oh, yes.
Which I'm sure you have. I would like to know how this process will work. We're gonna get public input tomorrow night. And then, yeah, hopefully. And then I'm gonna assume we're gonna take that input, we're gonna come back to a meeting, and we're all gonna chew on it and go over it and see what's what and where. Now, will that come back to this committee, or will it go to, for recommendations, or will it come to full council for recommendation? How will that work?
The process I recommended that I sent out was that after the hearing tomorrow night, when the public's done, that the mayor appoint a committee to study the projects and get, ferret out the details on projects, the price, and that sort of thing. And that committee would make a recommendation to the full council, at which time the council would take it up and approve or not.
I know we've got, what, a year to spend it? Or a year and a half?
You have till December 31st of 2024 to encumber the money, in other words, to identify the project and sign contracts. And then you have till December 31st of 2026 to actually disperse the money. We've gotten half our money now. It's in the bank. Within 12 months, we should have the other half of the money.
All right, so if we all come to an agreement on, which projects are gonna be funded and, how we're gonna dole out some money, do you have to wait until a certain time to dole it out? You can go ahead and start doling it out.
The projects qualify if they were, if you encumber the money as early, if you've already done the project, like one of ours that we've identified is painting the groundwater storage tank over here. The water tower, which we did last year, wouldn't qualify, but the groundwater storage tank was done after May 3rd, March 3rd. So since it was done after March 3rd, it qualifies. We could get money back for doing that project, which was about $40,000, and that'll be on our list. So anything that you did between March 3rd of 2021 on up till December 31st of 2024 can be paid for.
Okay.
But to answer your question, in the long term, I think what you're trying to say is we do have some time to make an informed decision. And I think that was the purpose of giving so much time, is to make an informed decision, make a good decision on what you want to spend money on.
I hate to say it, but this money, we'll go through it so quick, it'll make your head spin. I mean, the $1 million that we got from Fish and Wildlife, I was like, that's a lot of money. And then all of a sudden, we started getting the bills, and it was like, it's not a whole lot getting done for that money. So I mean,
Now
yes,
we're
it's
talking infrastructure projects.
yeah. I mean, it sounds like it's going to be, get this project done, that project done. We might have to narrow our scope.
Well, we tend to apply any sums of money to what it actually costs to buy something, when you look at the soft costs, or what they refer to as soft costs, engineering work and, administrative and all that, those sort of things, it tends to eat a chunk away of it, so you don't feel like you're getting as much bang for your buck. But it is necessary. In fact, we already have I think I told everyone, we already have an engineering firm working on potential projects for us in the water side to identify some worthwhile projects and put estimates on them. And the cost of the engineering firm is covered under ARPA. Even though it's not a huge cost, I mean, we're not going to give them a bunch of money, but it is covered under ARPA.
It's not the same firm that did the Hallie Wilton Smith.
Whitman Reckwart, who's been our water engineer for
Yeah.
a number of years.
It's not the same one. I can't remember which one it was, but for a simple path down Hallie Wilton Smith, they had to go through revision after revision after revision. It was like, holy smokes, it's an asphalt path. But that's, one of those costs that we don't see. Engineering part of it.
And this last slide is fairly straightforward, but local leaders decide what projects to fund. No pre-approval from the Treasury or the state government is required, and each recipient should review the interim final rule, which is the actual wording that tells you what you can and can't do, to make its own assessment of whether the intended project meets the eligibility criteria. In other words, they're not going to tell you what meets it, but when they come to audit it, you better hope that you made a good decision. I mean, that's what's not
It's
said
gonna be
here.
like this PPP thing. They issued the first thing and they changed it, 25 times before they ended up finally telling you what the parameters were, and by that time, everybody paid it back and it was all done.
Right.
Yeah, it's gonna be that kind of thing, same thing.
Yeah.
Well, we have some experience. CARES Act is similar in that they dispersed guidance on CARES Act once a week or so, and they have a frequently asked questions bulletin that comes out from the Treasury about once a week, and they keep adding to it. All the same questions every week, but they keep adding to them every revision you get, and I read through it and I highlight them as I go. The PDF thing lets you highlight it, so the ones that applied, I have a bunch of already highlighted things that apply to us. Some of them in no way apply to us, but some very interesting and helpful. But the guidance comes in the form of those frequently asked questions. After you read the IFR, the interim final rule, the frequently asked questions are much more helpful to me.
All right, any other questions on that, on the ARPA funding? Committee member comments and other discussion? Doesn't matter, Denise?
Nothing.
Whichever, nothing. The only other discussion I had is we also need to do our evaluations on the police chief and town manager. So we have the same form we used last year. That was a very good form. If you two are okay with it, I can have Mike send that form to you two. You can review it, and if everything looks okay, then get back with me, and then we can proceed forth with the same form that we used last year. I looked over them. Would you send them to me yesterday? I looked over them. They were good forms and very, very thorough. So if that meets you all's acceptance, then we can move forward. I believe last time we did have the whole council do that, I believe.
Yes, we did.
Yeah. So maybe, Mike, you can email that to
Yes, sir.
Denise and Arthur, and assuming you all have no issues with it, then we'll maybe disperse that at the workshop meeting tomorrow
Right.
night.
I'll do that this afternoon.
Yeah,
And you want
copies for each council member.
copies for each council member at the workshop,
Yeah, I think the only thing I saw in there is you still had them.
as in tomorrow night?
Yeah,
Okay.
you still had them being turned back into Kelly. I think last time you turned them back into me for you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I think I had them turned into Kelly, and she delivered them to you.
No, they came
She
directly to
did-
me.
They came directly to you? Okay,
Yeah.
we'll do that. And we put I think we put a deadline on that, time and date.
Yeah.
And I'll compile it all and send it out to everybody like we did last time. We can probably plan on working on that, maybe the August workshop meeting possibly. we get them out we get them out tomorrow. Yeah, we ought to be able to work on it.
Yeah, we can make them do that first council meeting in August.
They can do the first council meeting in August, they can bring them to the first council meeting in
So
August.
it'll be due August 2nd.
Yeah, and then I'll compile it and I'll discuss them on the workshop meeting in August.
All right.
All right, hearing nothing else,
I'll
entertain,
make a motion to adjourn.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Bye.
Adjourned.